Hey everybody, Brian Meadows here from CorrectiveMechanics.com. I want to talk about stretching and why it's so important. We all know that it's good for our range of motion, but why is that? How is that important? And what other benefits do we get from stretching? When we stretch, the act of stretching actually allows our fibers in our muscles and our tendons to loosen and separate, and allows that to have greater flexibility. Having greater flexibility allows us to have more range of motion. So what does that mean? What is the benefit of range of motion? Well, it allows us to avoid obstacles more easily. We can sidestep them with more agility. We can go over obstacles. We can go through tight situations of obstacles. So if there's a tight space, or if you have to get low, we have a much easier time to accomplish that. But also, it allows us to have better reactive time because our muscles are released and they're not so tight all the time, or our tendons, so we can react a little bit faster. And because they're not always tight and they've been loosened, we can actually endure a little bit more tension in those joints and our muscles because they are ready to take action. And then finally, it allows us to have better posture. Additionally, having stretched tendons and muscles allows us to reduce our joint pain and prevent tendinitis. And that leads me to another reason why it's good to stretch, and that's hydration of the connective tissues that we have in our joints, in our muscles, pretty much everywhere throughout our body. The act of stretching requires some of that water and that hydration in there to allow you to go through some of that range of motion and to put those joints and the muscles and the tendons into a stretched position. But over time, like up to 30 minutes afterward and up to 3 hours after stretching, you hydrate those exact same connective tissues, and therefore pulling in some more of that water and hydrating those. And that helps prevent that tendinitis, the joint pain, osteoarthritis. These are the reasons why we want to stretch on a regular basis. So there are two kinds of stretching sessions that I like to consider, and I call them planned and supplemental. The first one, planned, is really about planning a day in a week, every week, to dedicate to stretching. I have a 4-step process that you can follow in preparing for your planned day and going through your planned day stretch. Step number 1 is to hydrate. Just a little bit of water, 8-ounce glass is sufficient to drink. Just what that does is it supplies the hydration that'll be necessary to rehydrate your joints, your connective tissue for after the activity. Step 2 is to go through a warm-up. And I recommend just going on a walk. I don't want you to do anything too strenuous. A simple walk is sufficient, and walking actually moves a lot more joints than, say, going on a run. But you can also do any kind of warming up activity as long as it's not strenuous and you're just going through a range of motion. The idea here is to get the blood flowing and get the muscles to warm up, because it's much better to do stretching with warm muscles and tendons and joints than it is in a cold start from there and trying to do some stretching. It actually makes it safer as well and gives you a little bit better result in the end. Step 3 is to use static stretching. So when we begin doing our stretching exercise, it's just a static stretch. You're going to hold it for 30 seconds minimum. You can go a little longer if you feel more comfortable. But we're not talking about any complicated poses. We just want to do simple stretches, something that you enjoy doing, something that you're willing to do on a regular basis. Remember, this is our plan every week. And then finally, we're thinking about the whole body, and we want to do a stretch for every part of our body as much as you possibly can. The more often you do this, the more range of motion you'll start to have. You'll feel more flexible, and you'll feel great. As time goes on, you'll start to notice your mobility is even better. Now, the pro tip is, if you want to get a little bit more benefit out of your stretch, and because we are corrective exercise thinking here, is to do self-myofascial release before you start your stretching session, but after your warm-up. And you want to target the muscles that give you the most trouble and the most problem, or where you have the most tightness. So those are the areas that you're going to self-myofascial release, so that'll help release any kind of adhesion that you have in your muscles that'll allow you to have a more effective stretch session. And I go into more about SMR and corrective exercise in a body and balance program that we've developed that you can join. It takes you through a guided program just based on your imbalances and your muscular and joint movement deficiencies. Now, the second session I was talking about, which was supplemental. And basically what that means is after you do any kind of activity, is that you finish with a gentle stretch of your problem areas or those particular muscles and joints that were involved in the activity that you had. So some of the muscles that I typically will focus on after a walk or a run is my thighs and my calves. My calves tend to be fairly tight all the time, so I take them through some self-myofascial release, and then I put them through some static stretching. And then for my thighs, because I have a sitting job throughout the day, and I know that my thighs and my hip flexors are typically tight. So I try to focus on them as well. Hey, if you like this video, do me a favor and put a comment down below, and even subscribe or hit that like button. And if you subscribe, hit the alert bell so you don't miss another video that I put out. But even more so, I'd appreciate it if you go to correctivemechanics.com and check out some other videos and tips and tricks that we have. And I also have available for you a free ebook that shows how the whole process of corrective exercise works and in what procedures and steps that we use in what order. But until next time, take care.